Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Pathami Sanskritam Nityam Vadami Sanskritam Sada Dhyayami Sanskritam Samyak Vande Sanskritamataram. Hari Om to all. Welcome to our first session of this new course that we are starting, Sanskrit for Shastra-study. So, for the first session, who already have joined online, I welcome all, and those who are present here, some of the people are also right here on campus. So, welcome one and all. I am very happy to tell that since we have announced this course, there has been great response from everyone, and so far within couple of or 2-3 weeks we have received more than 860 registrations and over 20 countries, which was very interesting to note, and many of them are here today joined online. So let me, before we begin, explain few things about what this course is going to be like. So the classes are going to be weekly online classes. Every Wednesday 5 to 6:15 p.m. we will have session which is live. This live session, those who are not able to join will be able to watch the sessions on YouTube. So in couple of days, in 2-3 days, each session will go on YouTube. Even those who are joining live can then refer to the session on YouTube to re-listen. Suppose something you have not got, suppose some point you missed on the screen also, you need to note down, etc. You can go see that YouTube video and complete your notes. So that is going to be the general structure. We will try as much as possible. We will not miss any week, any class, and that's how we are going to study. Now, as the title suggests, it is Sanskrit for Shastra study. So the focus of the session of the class is going to be on learning the Sanskrit language in order to study scriptures. So I may not go too deep into grammar part. I will not surely go too deep into the conversational Sanskrit part also. Not going to have Sanskrit for communication, etc., nor going to go into too much of detail of grammar also. So whatever grammar we need to know as we enter into the scriptures to understand the scriptures, that much grammar we will be studying. Okay, so that is how the class is going to be. Next, whenever there is any Sanskrit class, people are afraid because they think that lot of memorizing and by-hearting is required. So let me tell you in the beginning itself, see, Sanskrit, or for that matter in any language, there are many things which we know by heart. In English also, spellings, pronunciation, and words, we need to know by heart. But here you would not be told that okay, you take this and now by heart and come. No. As we go ahead with the class, the things will automatically be memorized for you. You don't have to put separate effort for it. Number one. Number two, if you feel that according to your age, etc., you are not able to memorize, that's fine. Okay. If you memorize, it is even better because then the knowledge is available right when you need. Okay. But even if you are not able to memorize, it's fine because we will be sharing with you certain tables, etc., by which you will be able to refer to the table and get the understanding. Okay. So memorizing is not a must, but I would love if you can memorize certain things, which I will be mentioning. What are the things that you need to memorize? But don't get frightened. Don't worry if you are not able to do that. That's all fine. at the moment we don't need any textbook. Okay, so we see each teacher has got his own style of teaching and methodology of teaching. So we also in Chinmay Mission we have a methodology, and each teacher will also modify it according to the need of the students. So at the moment we are not going to refer to any textbook. So for now, whatever happens in this class, in the session, is sufficient for you. At a later stage, if we need a exercise purpose, etc., I will let you know, and I will give you sufficient time to get the book, etc. also, so that you can refer. But at the moment, we are not going to refer to any particular book. Now, before we begin, okay, let me tell one very clear purpose of this class. Okay, why am I starting this class? Because I want to study. Okay, so I am not a great scholar of Sanskrit and therefore I want to teach everybody. It's not that. It's not that. I will be also studying along with you, and few things which I noticed, which I learned when I was studying Sanskrit, and which I thought that this is very important for the Shastra study. All those points together will be covered in these classes. So don't think that this class is meant for only scholars. No, this is for beginners, for all of us, right? So that is next thing. Now there are few people amongst us who cannot read Devanagari script. Devanagari script is the one. This is the script, Devanagari script. Okay. So there are few people who cannot read it. In due course of time you can. But there is also under Chinmay International Foundation home study courses, easy Sanskrit course is available, level 1, where how to read and write Devanagari script is taught. So you can register for the course and study it along with this, if you can't read this. Okay, because it will become easier if you can read this. Otherwise, all the time for me to put some, Devanagari script also and transliteration in English also, it's going to be very difficult while teaching, right? So if you can do that, that is even better. If not, proper places I will be explaining the English meaning, translation of it. Okay, so you can go ahead with that to begin with, and later on you can keep studying the Devanagari script also. But it is very important for us to read, that we should be able to read and write in Devanagari script. That then it becomes easier for us to understand Sanskrit, right? But not a must. There are many people I know, they write in transliteration only and read also. That's fine. For me, no problem. Next, how are we supposed to study? Okay, so the sessions, as I told you, will be weekly ones. So you have sufficient time to go back to the session or to your notes. So it is a good habit if you are taking down notes in the session itself, or later on while watching the YouTube video you can take down the notes. Please revise whatever has been taught in the previous session before you come for the next session. That will help a lot. I want to make this point very clear, that there is a difference between when we study Vedanta and when we study Sanskrit. Okay, for Vedanta the ideas may remain in our mind fresh before the next session, because it is understood means understood, and when it is just mentioned you recollect the whole thing. But studying a language is different. Lot of importance has to be given to the practice of it. For Vedanta also it is to be given, but I am saying just to continue with the sessions also, you will need to have practice of studying that Sanskrit language. Okay, so please keep this thing also very clear in your mind, that you can notes, you can go back to the notes and revisit it before you come for the next session. There will be questions which you will have, that this is not clear, that is not clear. Please write down in your notebook itself. Have a separate section for writing your questions, what questions are coming to your mind. So write them down. Don't ask immediately. Wait for next 3-4 classes. There is a possibility that some of the doubts will get cleared there itself, in the sessions itself. Okay. Now, if the doubt is not clear even after 4 classes, then I will give you one link where you can just put your question so that it will come to me and I will answer it as and when required. Okay, so that is how we are going to continue. Just as you have freedom to ask questions, remember that freedom is also with me. So I also, of course, in the class, those who are here, bad luck, I will be asking the questions sometimes what we have already studied. Sometimes for all the people who are joining online also, we will have some small quizzes, online quizzes, okay, where you just have to tick and you just can recollect whether you have understood correctly or not. Don't worry about marks, etc. You are not going to get pass or fail based on that. This is just to check whether we are following or not following. Okay, so there will be online quizzes which will come. It will be a fun way, to a very serious type of quiz, etc. So that also might be there, right? I think I have covered everything. Yes. So now let us begin the session. We invoke the grace of 2G, as Puja Guruji says, 2G, God and Guru. We invoke the grace of the Lord on all of us, on the student as well as the teacher, so that this knowledge transaction be fruitful, successful. We also invoke grace of the entire Guru Parampara who has kept this knowledge alive. My prostrations to all my gurus of Sanskrit as well as Vedanta, because of whom I am here standing today. And today I am even more delighted that we are starting on a very good day, auspicious day. Today is Ganesha Jayanti. Is supposed to be the day when Lord Ganesha was born. Ganesha was born, celebrated as like that. God are generally unborn only, but that is how it is celebrated, Magha Shuddha Chaturthi today. So we are going to begin this particular class with one verse on Ganesha. Let us chant the verse and then we will go into how to understand the meaning of verse. So generally in every session I will take one verse and then we will go into the, okay, so that you also know how to understand the meaning of the verse, how to decipher the meaning, etc. So I will chant, please repeat. Those who are here or online also, you can repeat. Agajanana Padmarkam Gajanana Maharnisham Anekadantam Bhaktanam Ekupasmahe. Together. Agajanana Padmarkam Namaharnisham Anekadantam Bhaktanam Ekadantam Upasmahe. Right. Now, as we see the verse, there are some interesting things that we notice. What are they? In the verse, if you see, there are some words which are opposite to each other. See there? Agajanana, Gajanana. Ekadanta, Ekadanta. Now, the word Gajanana, I am sure those who are from Indian origin would have heard this word. Gajanana you have heard. And you know also Ekadanta word also, I am sure you must have heard Ekadanta. And we know that these words generally refer to Ganesha. Gajanana, Ekadanta, why, etc. But generally refer to Ganesha. Now, along with that, there are other words, Agajanana. Means what? He is not Gajanana. Anekadanta, here many teeth are there. Ekadanta is one tooth. So now, let us understand what does it mean. What does this word and why it is necessary to learn Sanskrit language into scriptures. Okay, so let us see. The first one, Padmarkam, is one word. Now we are going to see it step by step. Okay, so how it's a compound word made up of many components. Now we will. Aga means a mountain. How does Aga means? Ga means Gachati. one who goes. Aga, one who doesn't go anywhere. Aga, one who doesn't move, doesn't go anywhere. That is what is called as Aga. So, mountain. Yeah. Aga. Now, Aga, mountain. Agaja is a daughter who is born from that mountain or to that mountain. Aga, mountain. Agaja, one who is born to that mountain. So, we are referring to Parvati Devi. Parvati Devi is the daughter of Himalaya, isn't it? Parvatasya putri Parvati. See, the word Parvati itself means that it is Parvata's daughter. Parvata's daughter. Right? So, Agaja means Parvati who is born to the mountain. Right? Agaja. So far, okay? Okay? So far, okay. Next. Anana. So, Agaja, Anana. Anana means face. Anana, face. Padma. Padma means lotus. Lotus. Right? Arka. Arka means sun. Okay? So, now one word is over. Agajanana Padmarka means what? Agajanana Padmarka means to the one who is the sun for the lotus face of Parvati. See carefully. In Sanskrit, when it is written like this, when we are translating it into English, we have to go right to left. So, one who is Arka, sun, for the lotus face of Parvati. Means what? Means what? The lotus blooms when there is sun. The mother's face blooms when the sun is in front. So, sun, sun, Arka. Okay. So, what is like the sun for the lotus face of Parvati? Who is that? Son. Who is that? That is Ganapati. Gajanana, Ganesha, all these are names of Ganapati. So Agajanana Padmarkam means Ganapatim, and because Arkam, Dvitiya Vibhakti, so to the one who is the sun for the lotus face of Parvati. Agajanana Padmarkam. So actually speaking, the word is not Agajanana. It is Agaja, Anana, Padma, Arkam. Okay. So, it is not opposite to Gajananam. Agajanana, Gajanana, there is no opposition. Okay. So, how we separate? But that is the beauty of the poet also. He is using such words which will contradicting or not. So, Marka. Gajananam. This word we have listened many times, name we have listened many times, Gajananam. What do you mean by Gajananam? Gaja means elephant. Elephant. So, Gajasya Ananam iva Ananam yasya, one's whose face is like Ganapati's face we know. Lord Ganesha is like that of the elephant. Right? So, again Gajananam referring to Ganapati only, to the one whose face is like that of the elephant. To that Ganesha. Right? So, Agajanana Padmarkam, Gajananam. Next, Aharnisham. Next word. You see that Agajanana Padmarkam, Gajananam, Aharnisham. So, Gajananam, Aharnisham, when you write together, it will be Gajanana Maharnisham. Gajanana Maharnisham. Right? Now, Aharnisham means what? Aha means day. Nisha means night. So, night, day and night. Where that word is connected, that we will see. Let us see first the word meaning of all the words, and then we will go into where it is connected. So, Gajanana Padmarkam, Gajananam, Aharnisham. Now, next, Anekadantam. I told you, it looks like Anekadantam, one who has got many teeth. But here, it is not to be split like that. Anekadam tam. Anekadam tam. There is a rule in Sanskrit that Anuswara can be written according to the next consonant. Okay, and therefore it can be written as na also. And that's why that this na, Anekadantam, that na is actually Anuswara only, which is written as na. So to split, how it will be? Anekadam tam. Not Anekadantam, Anekadam tam. Anekadam tam means what? Anekadam, to the one who gives many things. The one who gives everything. Aneka means many. Dam means dadati, one who gives, one who bestows things. One who grants everything we ask for. Anekadam. Tam, it will be connected. Anekadam. Whom does he give? Bhaktanam, for the devotees. For the devotees is the one, Ganpati is the one who gives many. You ask, he will. Bhaktanam Anekadam. Ekadantam. Next word is Ekadantam. Ekadantam, to the one who has got only one tooth. You must have seen in any picture of Ganesha also, one is complete, another is only broken. So only there. Why? Many stories are there. They say that some, they say while fighting with a Rakshasa, with Daitya, that tooth was broken. Another story that comes is when he was writing Mahabharata, Vedavyasa was reciting, and he was writing. He was the writer, no? So in between, what happened? The pen got broken. But Vedavyasa said that I will not stop. I will keep on telling. So he could not run anywhere and get another one. So he cut his own tooth. You see, sacrifice how much he did, just because otherwise he will not stop. So like that. Anekadantam, Ekadantam. Tam. That tam was there, you remember here? That I have taken because for the sake of the meaning. As I am telling, if there is doubt, immediately in the chat, etc., write it down, it will come. Okay. So tam means to him. Tam, to him. Saha tauta, tam tautan. So tam to him. To whom? To this Agajanana Padmarkam, Gajananam, Bhaktanam, Ekadantam, tam, last word, upasmahe. Last word is upasmahe. Upasmahe, we worship. We worship. Okay. So now, the verse is given in Sanskrit, we put it into a prose order. It's called Anvaya. Into prose order. Why put it into prose order? The verse will have many things, many words jumbled up. Because Sanskrit is a free word. Any word can go anywhere, the meaning will not change. Right? And therefore the words will be mixed. You have to follow a complete of it. That is called as Anvaya, prose order. So prose order for this is, now, is not right. Vayam upasmahe. This is not there. Vayam is not there in the shloka. That's why I have put it in the bracket. But also because upasmahe itself says that it is. So that's fine. We worship. So what is the actual prose order? Rearranging the words. Anana Padmarkam, Gajananam, Bhaktanam Anekadam, Ekadantam, Tam, Aharnisham Upasmahe. Remember this word Aharnisham was there? Aharnisham means day and night we worship. Aharnisham Upasmahe. It's a adverb. It's an adverb. Aharnisham Upasmahe. we worship regularly, every day, day and night, continuously. That's the kind of meaning that comes from this. Okay, so what is the total thing? Let's see in English. We all him, tam, vayam aharnisham upasmay. Come, one who is the sun for the lotus face of Parvati, Agajanana Padmarka. Second, whose face is like that of the elephant, Gajananam. Everything to the devotees, Bhaktanam Anekam. And who has only one tooth, Ekadantam. Okay, just take 1 minute, see the verse again. If you are understanding each and every word, take a minute, see whether you have noted all the points. See if you can do Anvaya here itself. Agajanana Bhaktanam Anekadam Ekadantam Tam Aharnisham Upasmahe. Got the meaning? Today we have learnt one new verse. Okay, but you see how so many things are already in it. It looks like a simple verse, but so many things. Agajanana, Gajanana, Anekadanta, Ekadanta. Is it conflicting? No, it's not. Why? Because the way we break the verse might be different. So here, how are we breaking? Agaja, Parvati. Anana, face. Padma, lotus. Arka, sun. Right? So, for the lotus face of Parvati, Gajananam is Gajanana only. Aharnisham is the same way. Aharnisham. Anekadantam, Bhaktanam Anekadantam. For the devotees, he is the one who gives Anekadam, who gives everything. Tam, that Anekadantam, how are we breaking? Anekadam, tam. Tam, Ganapatim, Vaya Asmahe. Ekadantam, one who has only one tooth. To that Ganesha we prostrate. Okay? Is that fine? Okay. Now, see, in just for understanding now, you see, Upasmahe is the verb. Correct? Upasmahe is the verb. Verb is we worship, Kriyapad. Okay. We'll come to some terms later. Here, the subject is not mentioned, but is understood verb itself. That's the beauty of Sanskrit language. Okay. When you mention the verb, the subject is understood. Unless there is a specific that you want to note, that you want to show, subject may not be mentioned also. Aham, Vayam, these are the things, Tvam, the things which they may not say. May say, they may not say. Okay. So, Upasmahe means we worship. So, here we worship is the verb, we is the subject. We are worshipping. Now the object, whom are we worshipping? So rest is telling about the object. Whom are we worshipping? We are worshipping Ganapati. And who is that Ganapati? So words are qualifying. They are adjectives for that Ganapati. Okay. So this is the general structure of any language. In the same way, it is the structure of Sanskrit language as well. Okay. Clear? Clear? Alright. Chalo. With this beginning, let us enter into, we should chant that once again. Alright. We will chant the verse once again. Please remember Ganesha is also the Devata of all the Buddhi, all the intelligence. And today on Ganesh Jayanti, we should pray that may we also get little bit more intelligence from him. We will chant together. Agajanana Padmarkam Gajanana Maharanam Ekadantamupasmahe. Okay, right. Now let us start the main topic of today's session. We are going to study Sanskrit. Why? First thing, before doing anything, okay, we must know why are we doing it. Now starts very interesting thing. Many people always complain to me that Vedji, when you are teaching Vedanta, you teach a lot of Sanskrit. Okay. What is going to happen is when I am going to teach Sanskrit, I am going to include a lot of Vedanta in it. This is the fact. Why? Because they are inseparable. And before we begin any action, question that always comes to mind and we must know the answer before we enter into it is why? Because everybody is telling learn Sanskrit. Are we learning because of that? Is there any particular reason? So now we are going to see that particular reason. What is that? Number one, Sanskrit is a key to ancient scriptures. First thing. Why? Because it is the language in which most of Indian scriptures are written. Most of our scriptures are written in Sanskrit. Shruti, Smriti, Purana, Ityasa, all that. We will be seeing the entire structure of Shastra, etc., that we will see. Shruti means Vedas. All the 4 Vedas are in Sanskrit. Vedangas are in Sanskrit. Upavedas are in Sanskrit. Puranas, 18 Mahapuranas, 18 Upapuranas are in Sanskrit. Itihasa, Mahabharat and Valmiki Ramayana are in Sanskrit. All that we study, Darshana Shastras, etc., mostly all of them are in Sanskrit. So, it is the language in which most of our Indian scriptures are written. So, if we want to understand the scriptures, we must know the language. Why? Next point, because the translations cannot carry the spirit or soul of the text. So, it's always better to study the language in which the text is written rather than studying the translation of the text in some other language which we know. Just one example I have given here. Word Upadesha. We have heard this word Upadesha in Sanskrit also, in Hindi also Upadesha. Usne Upadesh kiya. Now Upadesh, immediately what we understand, it is translated as teaching. What is Srimad Bhagavad Gita? Srimad Bhagavad Gita is Bhagavan Shri Krishna's Upadesha to Arjuna. But you see how the language gives much more meaning than just the translation. You see, Upa means near. Upanishad, there also Upa means near. Upavasa, there also Upa means near. Upa means near. And Desha comes from root Drish. Drish means to see, Desha means to show. So, Upadesha is actually, what does it mean? To take someone near to the object and show. That's called as Upadesha. So, when it is said that Shri Krishna Upadesha to Arjuna, what did he do? He held Arjuna's hand and showed him entire thing. Not physically, intellectually. He actually took the student closer to the goal, to the subject and showed. Are you getting? So you see, though if you read the translation, teaching. But word Upadesha, knowing the meaning of the word Upadesha in Sanskrit itself is giving so many new things, so many new meanings, so many new facets of the same thing. Right? That is the point. So, all the scriptures are in Sanskrit language, though there are translations available, but translation cannot carry the spirit of the text. Okay? And that is why if we know the original language in which the texts are written, easier for us to study that text in the true sense, not going by translation. Also, please note that many people who translate, they have got their hidden agenda behind the translation of the text. That's what we have seen with respect to Indian texts, Indian scriptures, when they were translated by foreigners, etc. Because they didn't know, they were just, understanding something. They were not part of the culture, so they could not translate exactly So the translation is far away from the actual text. And therefore, it is necessary that we understand the language to understand the original text. Number one. Now, why should we know Indian scriptures? Vedji, why unnecessarily? Because Indian scriptures are source of enormous amount of knowledge. Enormous. You take it in any field. There is so much which is already there in our scriptures. Recently, we had one camp on Samvada Suktas by Gauriji. And when she was explaining certain suktas in the Rigveda, we came to know that so many topics which Vedas have talked about, not even the latter texts. About pregnancy also, and about test tube baby also, and about so many things. From one womb to the another womb. Things have been spoken of in many places. So not just spiritual, but even secular knowledge is there in many of our scriptures. There are many people who are studying Indian scriptures to get this secular knowledge out. Many. In Mahabharata they say there is entire science of how to build aeroplanes. We don't know because we neither know the science that makes aeroplanes, nor have we studied the Mahabharata as it is as original text. But they say it is possible. Why? Because it is there. All the knowledge lies in the scriptures. Veda itself, we say, is storehouse of all knowledge. And therefore, everything that we need to know is already there. So, Indian scriptures being the source of such a huge knowledge, not just, science is right now in full boom, that so many such things are already there. So, one thing is to say that, okay, these are the discoveries of the latter scientists which already we have in India. That is one thing to say. But there is whole different, there is so much of knowledge which is not yet tapped. So many discoveries which have not yet happened in the modern world, but the knowledge already exists in our scriptures. So to see all those scriptures from those angles as well is very important. And that's why, see, nowadays in IKS, Indian Knowledge System, IKT, Indian Knowledge Traditions, have been taught, have been studied all over in schools, just in universities. Why? Because study the scriptures. Now here we are doing one attempt of studying the language so that we will be able to understand the scriptures. Right? So that is the main point, that Sanskrit is key to our entire ancient scriptures. Point number one. Next. Sanskrit is also a key to Indian culture. Our entire script, all the scriptures are written in Sanskrit. So, if you want to study the scriptures, you must study the language. That's okay. Now, second thing is, it is also a key to Indian culture. If you want to truly understand what is our culture, Bharatiya Samskriti culture, then we must go to Sanskrit. This is a very famous quote which says, Bharatasya pratishthe dve. Bharatasya pratishthe dve. Sanskritam samskritistatha. There are two things, dve. Dve means two things. There are pratishthe. Pratishthe means foundation. Bharatasya for India. So, there are two foundation stones of India. What are they? Sanskritam, the language Sanskrit, Samskritihi, and its culture, India's culture. If we see the history of our nation, India, we will see that when these two things, Sanskrit and Samskriti, when they started to go away from the people, we started losing the glory of our nation. When we went away from our culture, when we went away from our own language, we started going away from our own nation. Our entire, India is today looked up by all the other countries. especially during the COVID time, etc. If you really see, don't worry about what our media is saying, but just go and see what the rest of the media, what actually was India's image in the world. It was that this is the country which gave the vaccines to us even when they did not have it sufficient to save us. See, now this is Indian culture. Always give importance to the person who is different, not our family member. That person is given more importance than ourselves or our close family. So we see that as we are again going closer to our culture, India is again coming back to its old glory. So even to understand Indian culture, language is required. See, actually are important for India, the language as well as the culture. But even to understand the culture, Samskriti, we need to understand the language. And Indian culture is not some small thing. See, it is the oldest living culture in the whole world. You know this. There were many glorious cultures who have been lost in time. Egyptian culture at one point was very strong, very well known. Chinese culture was very strong, but that culture is not being followed, not being practiced now. Indian culture, Samskriti, is the only culture which is the oldest and yet living. There are people still following it, and it is so surprising that they are not just in India. Indian culture is being followed all over the world. Of course, from the people who have gone from here to the other countries, they are following it. Of course, person carries the culture within. They may not be staying here, but they are still following Indian culture. There are so many other countries who are part of India. Isn't it? Old India was a huge land, not just present. There all over those so-called now new nations also, we still see that there is Indian culture being followed. Maybe in different way, few changes might have happened in time, but the base of it is still the same. So we see that it is the old living culture, and again to understand that culture, understand that heritage, we need the language. So we come back to Sanskrit, even to understand the culture. Now here, please note one more point. The language always carries the culture. So if we stop using the language, we will not be able to understand or take forward the culture. Couple of examples I'll give. In all your regional languages, now within India we have so many regional languages, isn't it? Malayalam, Tamil, Marathi, Gujarati, Hindi, all these are, within that also there will be, within the regional language, there will be so many dialects. Now, you remember one word which is unique to your dialect. See if you can remember one word which is unique to your dialect or your language. Try using another word from another language to communicate this feeling. Try doing that. We won't be able to do. Because what is communicated by that word in that language is very unique. And it is very true to its roots, its culture. See, why I am not giving any one particular word? Because I know that all of us are from different backgrounds, different language backgrounds. So I want you to think about such thing. Okay, let us say in Marathi there is one word, in Gujarati there is one word. You cannot translate it into another. And even if you try to do it, it will not communicate that same feeling. Right? Now, nowadays we, for common language purpose, we use English. Okay? I don't have any grudge against English. Okay? I am not against English. There are many English professors also attending the session. So I don't want to take any enmity towards them. But you see how the language carries culture. I'll just give simple example. English is a foreign language, probably which must have started in England. Must have, that's what my knowledge says. You see, in English, in grammar, when we speak of persons, first person, second person, third person, we all have studied first person, I, we. Second person, you. Third person, he, she, it, they. You remember in school we studied all that? Now you see how the same concept, when it comes to Sanskrit, it is little different. First person. Okay. In Sanskrit, Prathama Purusha, literally translated as first person, is actually the third person. So, Prathama Purusha of Sanskrit is Saha, Sa, Tat. He, she, it, first person. Prathama Purusha, not, I will not say first person. Prathama Purusha is talking about third person actually. Then comes second person, which is called Madhyama Purusha, which is Tvam, you, yam, you all. And then comes Uttama Purusha, which is in English first person, which is Aham, I, Vayam, we. Now while memorizing also, we memorize it in this order. Pathati, patata, patanti, patasi, patata, patatha, pathami, pathava, pathama. Why? Because in Indian culture, we give most importance to the third person who is not here. In our house, when somebody comes as guest, even if we don't have anything to eat, we give that person first. Then to the next person who is in front of me, and last to me myself. This is our culture. See, that culture is reflected in the language. Whereas if you see in the West, Gurudev does beautiful analysis why it is like that. West, so much of focus on me, then my family, then if there is anything, then the third person. Why? Because their things are not available. In India, we have everything in plenty because of tropical region and because of all these things. So we could actually go beyond our stomach and think. But there it was so difficult. So all the time their first thing was survival. So for themselves, they have to think first. Then for their family. Then finally about the rest of the world. See, it is not good or bad I am talking about. I am just trying to explain how the language carries the culture. There were some attempts made, I remember, when I was in school, to change the structure of Sanskrit language. Because it was too difficult to, see, because if we study English, we are always seeing first person, second person, third person. So they changed it, saying that you start by starting with first person first. Patami, patava, patama, then patase, patata, patati, patata, patani. But it will not work. Because the word Prathama Purusha will remain third person. Okay, so we see that the language carries the culture. So as long as the language is alive, the culture will be alive. And therefore, Sanskrit is also key to the Indian culture. It is also the cultural language of India. And therefore, if you want to understand Sanskrit also, we'll have to understand Sanskrit. We go to so many places in the country also, and we see temples, we see so much of architecture, etc., brilliance. Every will be Sanskrit words. That's why if we understand, for example, one simple Konark, Sun Temple is very famous. Why that place is called Konark? Because Arka means it is in a particular angle. So Konark, the place itself, like that you see our own regional places. There will be something which is connected to Sanskrit, which will give much more meaning to that place. And therefore, we must learn Sanskrit to understand even our culture, Sanskriti. Sanskrit is the source of national and international integration. As I was telling that today, even the foreigners who have no connection with India, they learn our prayers. Because Indian prayers are universal in nature. Examples are given: Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, Vasudha Eva Kutumbakam. This entire family. Sarve Bhavantu Sukinaha, Sarve Santu Niramayaha. May all be healthy. These are our prayers. Where we don't exclude anybody. See, this is part of Indian culture. We don't Religion also, Hindu religion, we cannot exclude any. It is all inclusive culture. It is all is communicated brilliantly through Sanskrit. Therefore, today, when they say Sanskrit, they will chant these kind of prayers, which are universal in nature, which will remind us that we are actually part of the entire world. Our individual ego has to be dropped and we have to understand our global presence in a global existence. And that is possible only when we learn the Sanskrit. Because then truly we will understand the meaning of whatever we have been chanting from our childhood. These prayers are our daily life, but we have not paid attention to its meaning. So, knowing the language will help us to understand the meaning behind all that. Okay? And therefore, learning Sanskrit language is very important. Now, when we write in English, we say Sanskrit. You say Sanskrit. What it is exactly, once and for all, please make it clear. Okay. So, Sanskritam, the actual word is Sanskritam. But when we write it in English, the spelling is Sanskrit. So, sometimes we say Sanskrit. Okay. Sometimes we say Sanskrit. Okay. In Maharashtra, they will say Sanskrit, not Sanskrit, because in Marathi, Anuswara before Sa is pronounced as Sanskrit, Sansara. Okay. So, what it is exactly? Sanskritam, the pronunciation of Sanskritam is Sanskrit. Okay. So, the actual word is Sanskritam. Sanskritam. What does it mean? See, the word itself means Kritam. Samyak Kritam iti Sanskritam. Sanskrit, no name is given. There is reason for it. We will see as we go ahead, as we study more and more, we will understand this. In school, etc., I remember we used to always have this doubt, and we used to have funny doubts which the teacher cannot answer, and therefore we used to feel that we are very intelligent people. So what used to be our doubts? Why 2 is called as 2? Why 2 is not called as 3? And we used to think, oh my God, what a great discovery we have done, that the teacher is not able to answer. Our entire thing failed when we came to ask such doubts in Sanskrit. Why? Because Sanskrit has all the reasons why that particular thing is called by that name. So even the language is given a name, no? Sanskrit is given to that language. Why that only name is given? Why it is not Vikritam? There is a reason. What is the reason? Because the language, Samyak means well, Kritam means made. That which is well made language. So in the name itself, it explains that this is a well made language. Made means what? It's a purified language. Samskaras have happened on it. Purified language means what? In Indian scriptures, etc., when we go, there are so many scriptures which are written thousands of years back. But today, if we understand the language properly, we will be able to read and understand those scriptures. Why? Because even at that time, it was a purified language. The impurity cannot enter into the language. So the words which are correct only will be used. It cannot be what we say impure. See, for example, in all our languages, no, nowadays what has happened is the influence of other languages have happened on our English also. So the English that we speak is called as Indian English. Why? Because there is so much of Indianness which has entered into that language. So while talking also we'll say, correct na? Correct na? Now that na is what? Try explaining that na from English perspective. You cannot explain. So what has happened? Actually, the language has got some impurity in it. In Sanskrit, that is not possible. You cannot just add any word just like that. There are so many rules if you want to use a particular thing, and because of which what happens, even like for example computers, if you say that computers were made much later, our scriptures are written later, much before that, so we need to find a proper word for computer in Sanskrit. There are a series of rules that people have to follow, the scholars have to follow to come up with one word or many words to explain that particular object. Until that time, that word won't be used. So it's a purified, perfected language. That is why today in computer science, etc., also they say Sanskrit is the best language for computing, for making the softwares. Why? Because it is such a well structured language. Even exceptions are bound by laws. Nowhere in no other language it is so perfect as we see grammatical, perfection in Sanskrit. We cannot see that in any other language. So it is a well perfected and highly refined language, purified. It is perfect in all ways. That's why the title, the name given to the language itself is Samskritam, Samyakratam. What a beautiful! Wow, wow, wow! Well made, well done, well done, well done. Well done is called as Sanskrit. Okay, so Samskritam. Now, this Samskritam, as I said, in English when we write, it is SAN, okay, Sanskrit. So, sometimes I will be using Sanskrit, sometimes I will be using Sanskrit. Both are fine, both are same. Okay. Now, there is one very beautiful quote which says, Bhashasu Mukhya Madhura Divya Girvana Bharati. It is talking about Sanskrit and it says, Bhashasu, among all languages, this Sanskrit is Mukhya, is one of the main. Madhura, very sweet. Even a foul word is used in Sanskrit, it will appear so beautiful that you don't know that you are saying something wrong. You see, we all chant Bhaja Govindam, na? Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Moodhamate. That Moodhamate is so beautiful, so sweet. But meaning is what? A Moodhamate, idiot fellow. That is what Shankaracharya is saying. But the language is sweet. Madhura. Divya, it's a divine language. It's the language of gods, they say. Gods speak in this language. Okay. This is another one of those questions which we used to ask to our parents, that in which language should we pray? What is Marathi language and God doesn't understand Marathi language? Big question. So we used to ask in school time, which should we pray? Should we pray in Marathi or Hindi? But he speaks in this language. So if you know Sanskrit with God. See, another thing also you will see. Whenever we go for any trade, if you catch that person is speaking which language, or he is from which, his mother tongue or tongue is what, and you start speaking on that, immediately done. That's why in Mumbai, if you are staying, you should know Gujarati. Though Mumbai comes in Maharashtra, you should know Marathi. That is true. But if you want to go and talk in Gujarati, they will feel that our person, and that it becomes very easy. So if you want to have good connection with God, it's not that in other languages you cannot talk to God, but see, Sanskrit, God will immediately take you closer. So, the Girvana Bharati, it is most divine, it is a beautiful language, and that is this Girvana Bharati, this Sanskrit. Another very beautiful quote which says, Sanskritam Nama Daivi Vak, the language of gods which I was mentioning, Anvakhyata Maharshibhi, which is Annu Akhyata, which is popularized, praised, Maharshibhi, by great sages. Okay, so it's the language of gods raised on earth by great sages. Nama Daivi Vak Anvakhyata Maharshibhi. Okay, so that's the beauty of Sanskrit language. Now, Sanskrit is a language, and as I told you, in Sanskrit, no name is given to anything without any meaning. So what is language in Sanskrit? Language means bhasha. Bhasha. Bhasha means language. Now, you see the word bhasha itself, has got one or two meanings. You see, bhashate anaya or bhasate anaya iti bhasha. One is that by which bhasha we speak, we communicate, we transact. That is called as bhasha, one meaning. Or bhasate anaya. Bhasate means prakashate, that by which we express our inner feelings, our concepts, our ideas. That is called as bhasha. So why language is called as bhasha? Because it is that by which we communicate or we express. So Sanskrit is bhasha. Now you see why the word language doesn't express so much of things, but the word bhasha does. Okay, so Sanskrit is a bhasha, is a language, is that which we use for communication, that by which we communicate, that by which we express. That is called as bhasha, and Sanskrit is bhasha. Now, what are the components of a language? Many times it is said that Sanskrit is very difficult language to learn. I know many of us also think like that which it is very tough, very tough. Actually, it is not tough. Why? That we will understand now. Why it appears tough? That also. So, language is bhasha. Okay. For any language for that matter. Now, we are not talking about Sanskrit as bhasha, but any language has these four components. Shravanam, listening. So, we listen in a particular language. Pranam, we speak. For speaking also we use language. Pathanam, reading. For reading also we use language. And lekhanam, write. For writing also we use language. So language is generally used for these four things: to listen, to speak, to read, and to write. Okay. Now, there is a particular sequence in which we must study that language. First step is to listen. Second step is to speak. Third step is to read. And fourth step is to write. Okay? Now, think of your mother tongue. How did you learn your mother tongue? When you were a small baby, even when you were not understanding anything, you started to listen your parents, grandparents, elder brother and sister, etc., speaking in that language. So you started by listening that language. Then slowly you started speaking, talking, isn't it? Mama, mama, isn't it? That's how we all started. Then we took the book in hand, and then they started to, this is this is A for apple, B for ball. Then the actual diagrams and actual script, etc., came into being. And then came writing. True or not? True or not? Now in Sanskrit what happens is, we don't listen to Sanskrit. We don't talk in Sanskrit. We directly go for reading and writing. And then we say the language is very difficult. The language is not difficult. We are going by wrong method. So during this class, what we will try to do also, I will sometimes just read one particular story in Sanskrit. Just listen. Even if you don't understand, that's fine. Just listen. Listen more and more. Turn to one shloka. We may not understand the meaning directly. Listen. Then slowly we start using Sanskrit words. We may not be able to speak in that language, but we start using those words while speaking. Then we come to read and write. If we follow this, then we will be able to understand or study the language easily. To tell you the fact, English is more difficult to learn than Sanskrit. I will explain why. Okay, but please note this. We have done the difficult part. We have already learnt English. Now we have to do the easy part. Okay, so that is the reason. Now, again in this itself, we see that for these two components, for Shravana and Bhashana, for listening and speaking, what is important is sound. Dhvani is important. Okay, and that's why pronunciation etc. becomes very important for listening and speaking. For reading and writing, lipi, the script in which we are writing, that becomes important. So, as I was mentioning, this is called as Devanagari script. Sanskrit is Bhasha. Devanagari is where we write V like this, N like this, Dha like this, Va like. So there is a particular. There were other lipis. Okay, by the way, Sanskrit always written only in Devanagari. There was Sharda script and so many other scripts were there. Okay, Devanagari is one such script which is followed, and now also it is practiced. And luckily, what happens is in other languages like Hindi, Marathi, Gujarati also little bit changes, but mostly it's also Devanagari script. So those who understand Devanagari script are able to read Sanskrit. Why? Because the script. Okay, so script takes care of these two things, and sound takes care of these two things. Also, if we see interestingly, for Shravana and Patana, it is the means for gaining knowledge. When we listen, we are gaining knowledge. When we read, we are gaining knowledge, and that's why these two things happen through our Jnanendriya, our eyes and our ears. Why? Because Jnana is coming inside. Right? Whereas Bhashana and Lekhana is Jnana Abhivyakti. We are expressing, it is going out. These are input, output. When we speak, we use the speech, which is Karmendriya. When we are writing, we use hands, which is again Karmendriya. Right? So what we have understood, we express through our speech and through our writing. These are the four components and the interconnections for any language. Okay, just see whether you have understood the whole thing. Shravana, Bhashana, Pathanam, Lekhanam. Listening, speaking, reading and writing. And then we see we have to go in that order itself if you want to learn any new language. Okay, sound is important for Shravana and Bhashana. Lipi, script is important for Pathana and Lekhana. Right? Shravana and Pathana are Jnana Grahana Sadhana. They are the means to gain knowledge, and therefore Jnanendriyas are used for doing that. Whereas Bhashana and Lekhana is Jnana Abhivyakti, for expressing what we have learned. Right? Now this is not just for Sanskrit, okay? This is for any language. This is what happens. You take English language or your mother tongue, etc. These are the four things, and these are the components for everything. Okay, is that clear? Understood? Sufficient for today. Okay, so we started with the details about the class. I've mentioned everything, right? Then we went into one shloka on Ganesha. We understood the meaning of that shloka and how the meaning is to be taken out, etc. also, right? Then we understood why Sanskrit is to be studied, because it is key to scriptures, it's key to culture, and it's a purified language. It's such a beautiful language. That's why we study that language. Okay. And lastly, we have understood these different components that are used in the language and their interconnection, in which order they should be studied, etc. Okay. So sufficient for today. We will continue with the rest of the topics in the next session. Okay. We'll conclude. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ओम शांति शांति शांति। हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम। शुभम भूयात्। हरि ओम।